and we're just going to get right to work because I think this is going to be one of those shows where there is going to be a lot of commenting needed. I think we need you guys today because Brett Yormark said some things yesterday, the commissioner of the Big 12, that frankly, I think it's about goddamn time that Brett Yormark goes on the offensive. And we've talked about it ad nauseum on this show, that I believe Brett Yormark and the rest of the commissioners have a great relationship. There is this belief that there is, this adversarial kind of tone between the commissioners. We've told you that's not the case. We've told you that the TV partners, the commissioners, who are all essentially partners because what's good for one is probably good for the other. And yesterday, Brett Yormark made some interesting comments. And one of those comments was that he believes we should hit the pause button on expanding past 12 teams in the college football playoff. To which I say, you're darn right. I think that's the exact right thing to do. Yet here we are talking about super leagues, and we don't even know the impact that this 12-team expansion is going to have. I thought the other thing, and we're going to get into college basketball in a minute, that Brett Yormark talked about is something that we've reported on this show for months now, and I think is a matter of when, not if. Brett Yormark says that he and his constituents in the Big 12 are in favor of expanding the NCAA tournament, and they will soon speak with Charlie Baker, the president of the NCAA. This is the offensive. Brett Yormark knows that he has got the best college basketball league in the country, and he needs to aggressively take advantage of that revenue. Jake, I think it is past due and high time that Brett Yormark take the offensive as he did with the media yesterday, because I think it can only lead to better things.
Yeah, I mean, I think the league needs the tournament to expand so that they can have more presence in the tournament and have more opportunities to make money. I'm sure we're going to get, the immediate response of the Big 12 haters in the comments section saying, well, maybe they should win more in the tournament. Maybe they should do this. Maybe they should do that. But the reality of the situation is it's not even how much you win in the tournament every year. Like, obviously that does matter, but what's more important is having as many teams in as possible in the tournament. And so when you look at, the selection process for that and, the way you get into the NCAA tournament, all Brett's looking for is more opportunity for his conference. And I think that for me is really smart. I think the college football playoff is not the Big 12's wheelhouse. Obviously football is an SEC and Big 10 proposition for the most part. Yes, there are teams from the ACC and in the Big 12 that, are in the conversation. But for the most part, the SEC and the Big 10 dominate the college football playoff pretty much year in and year out. And so if you're Brett Yormark, you're sitting there saying, well, hold on a second. Instead of just continuing to expand the college football playoff and continuing to feed the beast that is the SEC and the Big 10, why are we not talking about expanding the tournament and giving the Big 12 and, in my opinion, by extension, the ACC more opportunity? Because those are the two best, basketball conferen's in the country.
Yeah, almost unquestionably.
Yeah, and so if you're Brett, you're sitting here saying like, hey man, we got to talk about both sides of the fence here, not just the football field.
Yeah, I think this is long overdue, and I think there's a couple of things that I would point to. Obviously, you guys know on this show we follow the Big 12 very closely, college sports in general very closely. But you look at Brett Yormark, according to Ross Dellinger, Yahoo Sports, saying, as for the college football playoff, Yormark personally believes that the development of a new format in 2026 should wait until after this year's 12-team format is played.
Yeah.
However, the league is for more access, 14 teams over 12. In conjunction with that comment, Brett Yormark also said he was not in favor of the unequal revenue sharing model.
Yeah.
But knew he needed to move on from it.
Well, and that's why he said, that's why when the new model came out in the college football playoff, he said immediately, like one of the first things he said was, hey, we need a look-in clause in 2027 to make sure that we're all still happy with it. And that's why, while yes, he's in favor of potentially going to 14, he's not in favor of the SEC and the Big Ten continuing to just eat and eat and eat and continuing to get more advantage and the upper hand and constantly having the higher
Well,
ground.
it's the separation of classes that we're all watching.
Yeah.
That's what Brett Yormark is talking about. And I think he's spot on with this. I think, and I know Big 12 fan, you always lose your shit when I bring this up, but the Big 12 is falling behind. That is, in my opinion, that is an opinion that is backed up by people we talk to in the industry. The Big 12 is at a very critical tipping point, and their only way to put the scales in their favor is through basketball, because until they become a powerful football league, which I think this is one of the most critical years in the history of this conference's football product. Because unless and until Big 12 football becomes a leverage proposition for Brett Yormark, he is wholly relying on college basketball to be his lever, the lever he can pull.
Yes.
The leverage that he can play. That's it. He doesn't have a behemoth in college football any longer. He doesn't have Texas and Oklahoma. He doesn't have Nebraska and A&M. He doesn't have, well, I would say Missouri, but Dakota Tubbs would probably, stain his shorts. But my point is, he doesn't have what it used to be. He has what he's got now. And you can mock and make fun of Deion Sanders at Colorado. How important is that program to this conference right now?
Mm-hmm.
How important is Kyle Whittingham at Utah? How important is it that Arizona and Arizona State and Kenny Dillingham find his way out of the black hole as soon as possible? How damaging is the financial ruins that Tucson finds themselves in right now? I think it's very damaging, because not only does Arizona matter in football, Arizona basketball is going to suffer under the weight of these financial difficulties that their system currently finds themselves in. And if you're only getting, let's say Deion doesn't go to a bowl game this year, that would be a real problem for this conference. Because if Deion Sanders at least goes to a bowl game and finds himself in the top 25 to end the season, that's a game changer for this conference. If Kyle Whittingham finds himself ranked in the top 12 and in the college football playoff at the end of the next football season, that is a game changer. Who else is going to come aboard? I say it every day on this show. And I heard from a lot of our friends in Lubbock yesterday. This is one of the most important seasons in the history of Texas Tech football. Joey McGuire has to produce, and produce right now. They sold out their season tickets yesterday. If Texas Tech is a top 12 college football team, the Big 12 is cooking with gas. Now, obviously, Houston, obviously, TCU, obviously, this entire conference has to perform. Kansas cannot significantly backslide. K-State cannot significantly backslide. With all of the changes in Manhattan, K-State cannot significantly backslide. This is a critical moment in time for the Big 12, especially in football. And that's why I think it is so critically important that Brett Yormark went on the offensive yesterday when he got his chance in front of the media. And I think he hit a home run. I don't believe that for a moment that Brett Yormark says things he doesn't calculate first. And I think these statements yesterday were calculated. I think they were critical, and I think they were very important. But none of it matters. It all rings hollow if Big 12 football does not take a big step forward this coming year. I think it is absolutely imperative that the Big 12 have multiple teams in that top 12.
Yeah, I mean, multiple. I think from a revenue standpoint, you have to have it, and the problem is that, again, you're playing with one hand tied behind your back, right? I mean, you have to find a way to overcome, and again, that's going to come at the grassroots level, if you will. That's going to come on the football field with your individual programs,
yeah.
and unfortunately, as the commissioner of a conference, there's not much else you can do about it. I mean, you can put your conference in position, but they still got to go out and perform. And I understand that, Brett Yormark is prolific with, TV partners and the media and, helping the narrative along and, really doing everything he can do outside of winning football games to put, brands like Texas Tech in a strong position. But ultimately, it's going to come down to those teams not calling a cover zero blitz on the goal line.
But I go back to Bedlam. This is why Bedlam matters. And again, I know that Oak State fans don't want to hear it. Do you understand what a loss the rivalry is for Oklahoma State?
Mm-hmm.
Think through this. Does Oklahoma really need Oak State on their schedule? Does OU really need Oak State on their schedule? They don't. Because they can replace them with any number of SEC opponents. Who's Oak State replacing the Sooners with? Who is that? Because I don't know who that is. I don't know how you get somebody. And say what you want about the state of Sooner football right now.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's still Oklahoma. So when your boy starts talking about how he doesn't care about Bedlam and doesn't want to talk about Bedlam, okay, who are you going to replace that with? Because if you want to talk about a team that's critical to the success of this conference, Mr. Mullet might want to start winning a lot more games of leverage. Oh, yeah, but let's take one of the most important games of leverage off your schedule. And it's again why I continue to tell you, if Mike Gundy, and his seat's never probably even going to be tepid.
Right.
But if Mike Gundy doesn't start winning, this conference will be worse for it. And if Oklahoma State is not a national championship contender, this conference will never see its highest best opportunity to make money and grow as a brand.
So get your facts straight.
Those are the realities of the situation.
Yeah, and I think that's what the challenge for the Big 12 is that you need someone, you need one of what I would call the heritage brands of the Big 12 to step forward. Whether it is Oak State or Texas Tech or whoever it's going to be, like you need one of them to step forward. I mean, you can see how healthy the conference was when TCU made that run a couple years ago, and that's the kind of thing you need to happen on a 1 out of every 3 year basis, not a 1 out of every 7-8 year basis.
Cannot have Iowa State backflow. You cannot have, like, I look at the new blood in this conference. BYU's critically important. UCF critically important. Houston yesterday. Did anybody see Houston yesterday? Telling the NFL to pound sand over the Houston Oiler blue and red uniforms.
Yeah.
That's all well and good, but if you put on those old Houston Oiler uniforms and you don't win games, what good is it? Cool, you look good getting your ass kicked, right? Like you need the bottom half of this conference. Again, Waco, I'm talking to you. Why did you not fire Dave Aranda?
Yeah, I really don't understand what Baylor's doing right now. I mean, and it does kind of beg the question, and we saw this a bit with the Pac-12 situation last summer, but it just seems like some schools are like just totally oblivious, just totally in their own little bubble as far as like the health of the conference is concerned, as far as like, what your future is going forward. Because I don't think the question of, hey, is our conference going to survive was ever really a serious question in college athletics until the Pac-12 thing began. And I'm not sitting here saying the Big 12 is in danger like the Pac-12 was. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that when you continue to lose and you continue to fall behind, every day that happens, you're one step closer.
But it's not an existential crisis or a crisis of...
Not right now, it's not. No.
Existence.
Yeah.
It's a crisis of relevance. It's a crisis of, again, I continue to hear this thing that the Big Ten and the SEC are just going to go play on their own. They're not. I continue to say that. I don't believe that they were ever planning on doing that, no matter what Greg Sankey says. But you're already watching the Big Ten, and more to the point, the SEC, who, again, they're the best college football brand in the country. You're already watching them walk away with more of your money because we can sit here and say, well, the Big 12 didn't get money. No, the truth is their money in the Big 12 went to the SEC and the Big 10. And we can all sit here and watch the house burn down in the ACC. But until it burns down and the house is gone, like, you're on level playing field with the ACC.
Yeah.
You're not on the level playing field with the Big 10 and the SEC because you don't win enough.
Well, and I would tend to, lean towards the Big 12 being a better football conference than the ACC, but it's not by much. I mean, you look at the brands and you look at, like, I always judge a conference. It should be, but I always judge a conference by the bottom 4 teams, right? So you look at the bottom 4 teams and you start to understand, like, yeah, the Big 12's bottom 4 is a little bit better than the ACC's bottom 4. And I think that, the real problem is that either way, the whether it is the Big 12 or the ACC, neither of them had representation deep into the postseason. And that's the problem. And I don't know how you overcome that on the football field. I know how you overcome it on the basketball court, and that's through, NIL and recruiting, right? Go out and get players. In basketball, you can do that. It can be a year in and year out thing. Like, it's pretty straightforward what you need to do. But in football, it's totally different. Your head coach has to be dynamic. It has to be a leader, and kids got to want to play for him, because ultimately, I'm not going to sit here and be naive. You can't tell me that, Texas Tech and TCU and, these Big 12 brands are more attractive just on their face than playing in LA or Texas or Florida or Bama, certainly. Or
you're never going to pick Morgantown over Athens or Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
You're not doing that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that West Virginia isn't critically important to the Big 12.
No, but my point is that while the brands in the Big 12 are so important, how do we get from, hey, they're so important, to, hey, they can actually get into the college football playoff, and even if they lose that first game, they can still make money off of that.
Brett Yormark needs to have the balls to say, hey, what are we doing at Baylor? What are we doing with Baylor? Because if you're not, and I'm told they are, by the way, but if you're not sitting around in your conference meetings saying, hey, Baylor, you need to win more football games. Hey, Texas Tech. Hey, TCU, that was cool 2 years ago, but what the fuck was that last year?
100%.
Right? Like, you need to be having real conversations about what's happening inside your 4 walls, because we can all point at the SEC and the Big 10 and the ACC. Take care of your house first. Clean up your own mess, right? And you look at this conference, you've got to hold, and I think BYU is a really good example of this. You've got to hold BYU to a higher bar. Hey, you're in the conference now. That's cool. But now you actually have to support and prop up the conference.
Yeah, you got to pay your rent, bro.
Right? You have to do the job. You have to, hey, Utah, Kyle Whittingham, we need you to replicate your dominance the last 5 years in the Pac-12. We need you to replicate that in the Big 12. Hey, Texas Tech, maybe you don't call a zero blitz in Laramie. Like, you need internal ultimate accountability. And I don't know, does that exist in today's culture?
Well, I think that, the ultimate accountability piece is growing and changing as the Big 12 moves along here. And what I mean is, think about the dynamic in the conference and how it has changed. So last year, accountability would have been, well, hey, Oak State, just need you to get to the championship game. You had a slow start, but middle of the season, you picked it up, and we just need you to get there. And so you did. And the conference never expected anyone else but Texas or Oklahoma. And really, it was Texas the whole time, based on Oklahoma's position. Nobody expected anyone else besides Texas to win that conference. And so now that those two are gone, now ultimate accountability looks like, hey, we need you to be bowl eligible. We need as many teams as possible to be bowl eligible. Because if let's say 70% of your conference, 60% of your conference is bowl eligible, at least half is bowl eligible, now we can start talking about, okay, well, how can we get 4 or 5 teams in the playoff? And if you can do that, then you're in a much better position. But I'm telling you right now, this season, there's going to be 2 things at play. There's going to be a couple of teams that overachieve and do their job more than people think. And then there's going to be the group of teams that way underachieves. And I don't know which team that's going to be that surprise, but I'm telling you, Brett Yormark is going to come down on them and say, hey, like, what is this? Like, how do we got to get better here.
You got to have, at some point, you got to find 4 teams that can make the college football playoff
with regularity.
And I mean, obvious for me anyway, I'm always going to tell you Utah. I would like to think that would be Oak State. I'd like to think that'd be Oak State. I'd like to think that would be Iowa State. And I'd like to think that that'd be Texas Tech. That you can take those four in college football year in and year out and say they're one of the. And I think ultimately this becomes moot. But in up until the next 2 years at least, those four teams are four of the top 12 teams in the country.
Yeah.
I don't know how realistic that is. Now, I'm sure, again, the people at K-State, Kansas, I'm sure I have zero faith in anything that's happening in Waco because you didn't fire your head coach after ineptitude.
Embarrassing.
For multiple seasons here. So I have zero faith in Baylor football. And which is really bad for this league. I don't expect Houston to somehow have some miraculous turnaround this year.
Well, I think TCU is the other one that you're sitting there looking at them and you're like, okay, like how can we get traction? How can we replicate here? How can we, get back to where we want to go? Because again, and it's no shade to Max Duggan, but it's not like Max Duggan jumped into the league and all of a sudden was a franchise guy. You did that with somebody who you developed and somebody that you made better as a player on the football field. And so clearly the talent is there to develop your skill position players. And if you can do that, you're obviously going to be in a better spot. But again, it's like, is it TCU or is it Iowa State? Is it TCU or is it Texas Tech? Like I'm telling you. So my point in all this is that we're going to find out, obviously, who it's going to be. But I am warning you, when you look at this conversation in a 5 to 7 year window, if the Big 12 does not start making serious gains, like if you don't start having 2 and 3 teams in the college football playoff every single year, you are going to be in danger. You will fall behind too far. And even if the tournament does get expanded, you have to have football to go with the tournament. And I agree. The tournament should be expanded. Or, we should start having that conversation.
Yeah,
it needs to happen. But I don't love it either. But the reality is like there's too much money to be made to not expand the tournament.
Yeah. And again, I think Houston's a perfect example of this conversation. Willie Fritz was a spectacular hire. And it's going to take him probably 2 years to rebuild that program that's already a powerhouse in college basketball. So again, you have all these, I look at Utah. When does Utah basketball become nationally relevant? Because they're not right now. And you just lost Chris Burgess. So when do you become nationally relevant?
Man, that hurts too.
I don't know when you become nationally relevant. I don't. You got it. Again, I keep going back to this stuff that I just.
But like with Utah, you got to start looking at what happens after Cam Rising leaves the program. Now it's time to start talking about, okay, what do we look like after the Brant Keithies of the Cam Rising era ends? And I'm sure that Witt's, got guys lined up. I have no doubt because that's what he does. But I'm just telling you, like, you look at the Big 12 and you look at it situationally, you're like, okay, Utah should have a pretty good year this year, but then what happens next year?
Yeah.
And where do we go?
I agree. Let's hear from you. First one in today, OG Gary, Lil Jizzy, Mountain Mama. Hit the like button. Let's go. We're at 500 viewers already. We only have 36 likes. Do I have to beg? We're off tomorrow, so certain people can sleep in. We're off tomorrow, so I mean,
dude, the internet's out. Come on.
Such as and like.
Yeah, the CenturyLink problem, dude.
No, and don't even joke about that. Hit the like button. Pete Forte, the fake AI bot. How are you? The eye patch. Chad Carter. Zach Sloter. Hello, Sloter. Dakota. Hi.
How's Pooty doing, dude?
No, don't start. Ryan Smith's receding hairline. I said Ryan Smith's receding hairline.
We show up.
Yes, you do show up. Matt Ritson. Hello, Matt. Good to see you. Mr. Preston. Dibs. John Dry. What's up?
What's up, dudes?
What's up? Dakota Tubbs recently unalived. Call the advocates. That's what I'm talking about.
Recently unalived.
Mike Smith, J2H, channeling Marty McFly with the vest today.
Yeah, dude. It's cold in Salt Lake. All right.
Yeah, woke up to 36 degrees this morning.
I wake up and get in the shower, do my thing, the usual routine. Go into my closet.
All I want is golf.
Go into my closet today, right?
Closet.
And I'm like, all right, cool. Like I got one pair of my.
You're routinely in the closet.
Yeah, I'm routinely in the closet. And so I roll into the closet. And I'm like, all right, cool. I should have one more pair of pants left. No, absolutely not. So what am I stuck wearing today? Stuck wearing shorts today on a 40-degree day. Thanks.
Jeez, what a terrible stretch of weather coming to the city with a Salt
The Great Salt Lake.
Yowzer. Let's see. Dakota Tubbs. I have the same get up as old Two Holes today, Mike.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, the vest is goated. There's
maybe
no
it's Vest Thursday.
Yeah.
UW fan Jim, hello. The other conferences should be fine with it. They could benefit too. Not sure the fans will enjoy it, and that is where most of the money comes, but who knows? No, most of the money comes from TV, in my opinion.
And I don't think in the big picture, like in terms of TV viewership and fans and stuff, I don't really think fans care all that much in terms of what conference you're in when the game is on. I think they want Washington and Oregon. They want, SC and Ohio State. They want, Alabama, Georgia. They want the marquee matchup, and that's what you're going to start getting.
Big Daddy Magic, hello, good morning, playa. It's Thursday. It's a great day to be alive, and BYU absolutely sucks. What is your boner for BYU, dude?
He's a Utah fan. He hates BYU. It is what it is.
We get it. Like all you comment, I think for the last several days, all Big Daddy Magic has commented is BYU and like tampons. Like, guy, come on, man. Glenn, San Diego State. Glenn, how are you? Mike Smith, can I have some more gruel, sir? Okay. Caps Lock. Ooh, Caps Lock Friday. Coug got a new logo.
Well,
Big-12 has to rely on Utah in football and pray Tech and Oklahoma State do something.
Seriously,
I don't disagree with that. I think when you look at the Big-12, I mean, the state of Texas is critically important. I mean, with TCU, Tech, Baylor, Houston, like you got to have it. They've got to be power brands. You've got to be power brands. I think that is hugely important. Wet Blanket is back. Hello. Oklahoma State will win the whole conference, says Oak State fan every year.
What happened? Brandon Whedon didn't come out of retirement for you?
John Dry, Wreckham Tech. Okay. Dakota Tubbs. I would also say this is the most important season for Missouri football. I don't think that's true. Does Missouri play football? Did you know? I didn't know Missouri has a football team.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that, dude.
I know Quinn Snyder's your basketball coach, but
yeah, but that's interesting. I'll have to do some research.
Yeah, I will have to take a look at that. I was unaware. Wet Blanket says F ya, bye. Okay.
Good talk. Really
Caleb
good talk.
Elmore, most Oklahoma State fans want Bedlam still. Well, somebody forgot to tell Coach Gundy that. Remember the people that support his program. This is not a game of consequence until he won it, and then he stood up on the dais and cried like a little. Anyway,
what are we doing?
If you don't want to play Bedlam, I don't understand that. I still, it's where Mike Gundy lost me. I was a huge Mike Gundy guy, and between not being an NIL portal guy in the beginning, 2 words, Alan Bowman, and then Bedlam sucks. That's where Mike Gundy lost me. Mike Smith, Monty, registered Mormon lover and Gundy hater. Well,
my bad.
50-year-old fat Mormon. That's me. You heard it here last. K-State will step up, Stepanek says. Hope so.
I don't know, dude. I think the Will Howard train is alive and well in Columbus, and I don't know how exactly you're going to replace that and Cooper Beebe and
Ben Sinnott.
Like all these dudes that are now NFL guys.
Wholesale changes at K-State in football.
So, like,
It's wild.
to be honest with you, K-State's a program that is primed for like a 3-win season if they're not careful.
Yeah, I hope that's not the case.
I hope
really
it's not the
hope
case either, but I'm just telling you, like, when you lose that much talent, like, it's not, I'm not joking. I'm not even hating. Like, it can be rough.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, I am a big believer. I'm a big believer that when you have the depth that the Big 12 has, it's only depth if they're winning games. It doesn't matter how deep you are if you're not. It doesn't matter if you've got a ton of dudes on your 3 deep, but they're not very good and they can't. You got to perform.
Yeah.
You're if you've got 14 teams that are like 5 wins, what kind of conference do you really have?
You don't.
You don't, in my opinion. Let's see. Dakota Tubbs, top end of the ACC is better, but on average, the 12 is a better football conference.
But has it really been like, and I'm being serious. I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm not sure the ACC's top end has been better.
I don't think when's Clemson?
Yeah.
Where's
come on, dude. I understand Florida State. I get that. And I'm with you on that. They had a great season. Obviously the drama with the college football playoff, but okay, I'll give you Florida State for sure. Okay. So then,
I mean, you're talking about Florida State. Last year was Florida State, Louisville, and NC State. And Florida State won 13, Louisville won 10 games. But is winning 9 games some bar of superiority? After that, I mean, you're talking about Clemson ranked 20th in the country for a program that's supposedly built on NIL.
We built this program on NIL.
And Dabo's some kind of god.
In God's name, image, and likeness.
But has Miami been relevant? Boston College, North Carolina at 8-5 last year.
Like, see, North Carolina is a good example of what I'm talking about. 8-5 UNC on the football field is phenomenal for the ACC.
Good
That's
enough.
Exactly what you're looking for out of UNC. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need UNC to be trying to win a natty on the football field. You just need them not to be Garbo. You need them to be, just competing.
I don't know. I don't think that now, obviously Florida State and NC State made their mark with defense last year, but their offenses are, Iowa had a better offense than nobody had a worse offense than Iowa. Anyway,
send those refunds.
NC State wasn't scaring anybody on offense.
Yeah.
Right? Are you telling me Clemson scared anybody offensively last year? I mean, look how many sub 200-point teams you had in the ACC last year.
Yeah.
A lot. And if you go to the Big 12, you quickly understand that you had 3 sub 200-point teams last year. That'd be Houston, BYU, and Cincinnati. Oh, that's funny. Those are all 3 new incoming teams, right? So I believe the Big 12 is a better football conference. Wet Blanket again says, bye, dude. All right, we'll see you later. Thanks for coming. Good to see you again.
I don't really get what you're doing, bro.
I don't understand what you're upset about. Stepanik says, Wet Blanket, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord splits you.
Yeah, I don't
What are you so
understand.
upset about?
What are we upset about right now?
It's
We're
too
talking
early.
about football, bro.
It's too early. You seem upset, Wet Blanket. You do.
Yeah, like what's the issue, man?
OG Gary, 12 needs to be competitive every year. Oak State, Tech, and Utah need to be a force every year. Utah can't be the only one representing the 12 in the college football playoff.
But I think that's a very real possibility. Like,
let's watch our arrogance. I don't believe that Utah. This is not an easy conference to win, right? Your conference champion is going to get in. You would assume that it'd be right now today, Utah or Oak State. Those two, you would think, right? I mean, that would be your. I don't know who would pick outside of that, but I don't think that Utah is going to get the golden ticket every single year, like just gift wrapped and sent up to the hill. I don't think that's happening. So let's not believe that it's going to be easy.
I mean, I will compromise and say that I do think that Utah will compete to win the conference every year at a minimum. I think that I do believe the Pac-12 in its prime, like last year's Pac-12 was twice as good as the Big 12 on the football field. I don't even think it was close. I think you had Washington,
I would agree with
Oregon,
that,
you had obviously Utah, you had a lot of really good teams and a lot of talent. Now, obviously, Utah lost some dudes, to the draft, but I don't know. It is a stretch to say that Utah is just going to win the Big 12 every year, but I do think Utah is one of the three that'll compete every year.
Yeah. Mike Smith, Baylor kept Aranda because his buyout was too damn much. Same reason West Virginia kept Neil Brown needs fired the prior offseason. But again, we've talked about this on the show.
Yeah.
Do you have collectives or do you not? Do you have boosters or do you not? I mean, Jimbo got whacked at A&M. And then they went and hired Trev Alberts. So you either have the backing or you don't, right? I mean, if we need to clean more coal to get Neil Brown waxed, show me where to buy the scrub brush, right? I'm all about it. But Neil Brown actually earned another year. Dave Aranda didn't earn shit. His
buyout's only $20 million, dude.
Dave Aranda didn't earn a thing. Dave Aranda has embarrassed Baylor.
Yeah.
And you kept him. You fired his staff. So you think that Dave Aranda is not the problem. You think that Grimy was the problem. No, he wasn't. Dave Aranda's the problem. Dave Aranda's an issue. And I don't know, Mike. I'm not saying you're wrong by any stretch. $20 million buyouts are big dollars, but you're either playing or you're not.
Yeah, it's a philosophical conversation. It's
right?
A philosophical positioning thing. Like you're either doing what it takes to compete or you're not. And having Dave on the sideline tells me you're not willing to compete right now. And what's even more damning is that you're Baylor. You're a good brand. When Baylor won a national championship in basketball, people were about that, bro. Like, people love that. And that's why I say, like, when Baylor is good, they're one of those brands that nationally is recognized. Like, if you had Baylor in the college football playoff, that's good. Like, that's like, people would not be like, oh, well, who's Baylor? No, people know Baylor. It's just the problem is you're not competing or trying to compete at this point. You're happy to sit here and pay this guy how many ever years he's got on his deal instead of just paying the buyout, man. Like, I don't know. I tend to agree. You either are making bread and you got boosters and NIL and all this good stuff, or you don't. And if you don't, Brett Yormark damn well better find a way to replace you. Like, you just have to.
Big Blue Horses. Big 12 is like the VGK. Do you mean the Vegas Golden Knights?
VGK, man. VGK.
Looks good, but can't stop a damn thing on the ice. They've won a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, what do you mean, dude?
I think they've got 2 conference championships. It's now or never. It's go time. Perform or go home. Well, I mean, I watched most of their game last night. They lost 3-2 in Dallas. I probably wouldn't, the ghost of Gumby.
Wow.
Brigham, boy. Exactly right. Ryan Eckerd. Big 12 needs to be aggressive and find money anywhere they can to keep up. Totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
And I think, this whole 2027 look-in or review of the situation is a really interesting proposition, because I do think the landscape could look completely different by as soon as 2027. You start to think about, like, hey, you give the NIL conversation another, 2.5 years. You give the Super League conversation another 2.5 years. Like, that's a long time, bro. That's plenty of time to have, a fresh framework in place, like to have the TV partners bought in. Like, there's time there. So yeah, if you're Brett, like, your only mission is to make as much money as you can right now.
But it strikes me hearing you say that, like, what does it say about the Big 12 that Utah is going to come in and I think probably compete for a conference championship this year?
Yeah, it's an indictment. There's no doubt.
I mean, obviously Utah is a really good football program. No, there's no question about that. But this conference is vulnerable without Texas and Oklahoma. That's what it says to me. Stepanik. Don't count on Kansas State. Don't count out Kansas State. They will be in the Big 12 championship game with Utah.
I sure hope so, bro. But
that would be an incredible turn.
I am not going to sit here and be like, yeah, wow, K-State looks amazing, because I have questions.
Yep. Mike Smith, Missouri lost a lot of damn good players in the draft. They did. Absolutely. The Big 12, Jeremiah Champion. Hello. The Big 12 is such a weird place right now. I'm honestly not entirely sure who the front runners are going to be next couple of seasons. I think that's true. And it tells you the disarray that Brett Yormark found himself in. And it tells you the volatility of the market in college football. That it's wild. Texas and Oklahoma walked away. SC and UCLA walked away. It's wild to me. It is. We'll see.